How many frames does it take to make an anime? According to JC stuff, apparently 3. Today we're looking at The Way of the House Husband, a show that proves you can have the legendary voice of Nanami, a god-tier comedy script, and the animation budget of a PowerPoint presentation. Is it a masterpiece, or did the studio just massacre one of the best mangas of the decade? Let's find out together. Today is a very special day. We are going to review a very interesting anime that has a great concept, comedy and characters, but has one gigantic flaw bigger than Eren's colossal titan, which is the animation. I remember watching this right after watching Buddy Daddies, but I actually rewatched it now because one of my viewers actually requested this anime for a review. And oh god, what a disaster it was. But before we get into the comedy, we need to talk about the studio who took care of the anime, who apparently thought that movement is optional. Compared to that, One Punch Man Season 3 is an animation masterpiece. Honestly, at first I was thinking how to approach this review without turning it into a 90% trash talk about the animation, but I think I found a way, and I think it has a lot of good things. Way of the House Husband is a perfect example of how a great concept and comedy ended in the depths of unknown because of a studio like JC Staff who literally butchered it, similarly to One Punch Man Season 3. Let me start off with a positive note though. I think this anime is hilarious as hell. It's a compilation of skits and kind of like a mini series of a ex-Yakuza member, Tatsu, who is now living his life as a house husband. And there are other reasons why this anime is really not a flop, so bear with me. All the scenes are super funny and Tatsu, who is the main character, is absolutely great. Tatsu is even voiced by the Japanese voice acting god Kenjiro Tsuda, who is also known for his voice acting roles as Nanami from Jujutsu Kaisen, or Overhaul from Boku no Hero Academia, or Joker from Fire Force. I must say the voice acting is the saving grace of this anime, and I want you to really focus on it because it really then makes the watching much more pleasant. Even the other characters are awesome, like Tatsu's wife or Tatsu's friend Masa, who is his sworn brother, are really awesome. And the scene where Tatsu is cleaning his dirty clothes and showing him how to clean those clothes is absolutely funny as hell. I really got me cracking, and really all the mini stories are great, and it gives you a fun time throughout the whole series. The vibes are 10 out of 10, the jokes are 10 out of 10. So where did it all go wrong? So it's time to look at the slideshow itself. And so let's address the big elephant in the room, the animation. How to start? Well, let's start off by saying that if you watch One Punch Man Season 3, this is very similar, and I think even worse, because the budget for this anime was smaller than One Punch Man Season 3, even though you would guess that One Punch Man Season 3 didn't have a huge budget. So really the scenes are still pictures, and the animations is almost non-existent in nearly all of the scenes, and it really gets you wondering if this is really an anime, if you can really call it an anime, because this is really a series kinda colored manga panels which are put into sequence without any animation whatsoever. And to be honest, the art is even worse in the anime than in the manga. The manga is absolutely great, so really it's really a shame because the manga is really beautiful. I think it's really well written, very popular, and I think it's absolutely perfect. And really, if this anime would be in the hands of a much better studio, I think it could be really a masterpiece and it would be well received and much more known. My advice is really to focus on the core of the anime, which is really the comedy, the characters and the voice acting, and try to really ignore the animation, because you might be okay with it, but for me personally sometimes it was really disturbing. And needless to say, animation in season 2 really improved, not by far, it's not going to be Mappa level, but I think it improved slightly, so it is still a bit better, and I think it's because of Netflix. Maybe they received some budget from Netflix, so maybe that's why. But still, you need to keep in mind season 2 is the same issue with the animation. And also the jokes are not that fresh like season 1. I think the jokes in season 1 were much better than season 2. So let's move to the judging part. Let's talk a bit about the pros. So one of the first pros is the type of the series. So these are really short comedic mini stories without the need of really full investment. So it's not really a deep story where you really need to be really heavily invested into it. So I think this is really one of the pros. The characters, I think, are absolutely funny and they're really great to watch. I think each of them is really unique and it really makes the show really perfect. The comedy, I think the comedy is the main part of the anime. It really is something that really hooks you in, so the comedy is really perfect. And of course the voice cast, I think Kenjiro Tsuda is really carrying it on his shoulders. I can't really speak on the English voice cast, but the Japanese one is really perfect. Now let's move to the cons. And of course one of the first cons is the animation. I think sometimes it's really unbearable to watch. It's really bad. Like, you have still pictures with some slight animation applied on top, like really shaking things and stuff. So I don't think this is really something we can really classify as anime. So I think the animation is really a huge con. The music, for me personally, it was not really that good. I think the opening was okay. I think it was pretty cool, but the music was also not the best one, and also throughout the whole series the music is kind of like either non-existent or it's really weak. So for me, animation is a 2 out of 10, story is 7 out of 10, characters is 8 out of 10, sound is 4 out of 10, and rewatch value 8 out of 10. I think it's very rewatchable. With this, my final objective verdict of The Way of the House Husband is barely pass. I will give a series a 6 out of 10, and the manga, personally, I think it's an 8 out of 10. And shout out to Patat Edits for recommending this anime for a review. Thank you so much, bro. So to sum it all up, we have another disaster created by JC Staff, and they continue with this during the second part of the first season and during the second season as well. So this is another story of how a studio, specifically this one, butchered one of the really great series that were created. And keep in mind, I think it's an anime that I would recommend to people for really a fun watch. I think the comedy is perfect, characters are awesome, and you can really get a really good laugh. So I think the anime excels at some of the things. It's just the animation is such a huge part of it that you cannot really ignore it. You can kinda digest it, but it's really hard to really ignore it. I am really curious, what is your take on Way of the House Husband? Do you agree? Let me know in the comments, like or subscribe if you really liked the video, and let's make a deal. Let's see each other in the next one.